In the heart of Beijing, under the dim veil of night in 1908, a shadowy assembly emerged from the confines of the Forbidden City. Flanked by servants and mounted imperial guards, the palace chamberlain led them, a procession not intended for a departure, but rather a mission of retrieval. Their path wound northward until they reached an imposing mansion adorned with crimson gates, the residence of Prince Chun. Unbeknownst to the prince, the imperial entourage had no intention of paying him a social call. Their objective lay within. Specifically, they sought his 2-year-old son. The moment the little boy caught sight of the strangers, fear engulfed him, driving him to seek refuge in a cupboard. Desperate hands reached for him, only to encounter resistance. He screamed and sobbed, scratching wildly as he fought against the grip of the servants. After what felt like an eternity of struggle, they managed to soothe his frantic cries. With great care, they carried him back through the bustling streets of Beijing to the Forbidden City. This frightened toddler, named Puyi, had been chosen for a monumental destiny. He was to become the next emperor of the Qing Dynasty. To the people of China, he would not just be a ruler, but a living embodiment of the divine, a true child of heaven. In the pages of Edward Beer's remarkable book, The Last Emperor, one encounters a haunting moment steeped in the weight of history. Deep within the atmosphere of Puyi's coronation ceremony, the young boy feels a profound sense of unease. He is surrounded by unfamiliar faces, strange men uttering alien words, ministers, palace guards, and numerous officials, all part of a daunting parade that seems to stretch endlessly before him. These men approach one by one, bowing in a ritual that involves kneeling thrice and pressing their heads to the ground 9 times, a gesture known as a kowtow. Each of them swears fealty, but to the tender age of 2, these solemn proclamations are nothing but a haze of confusion and fear. In this tumultuous moment, the one person who could soothe his troubled heart, his wet nurse, is absent. Puyi is barred from seeing his mother, and Nurse Wang, though she plays, feeds, and sleeps beside him, is not allowed to partake in this significant event. With her exclusion, Puyi's anxiety grows, and soon he begins to fidget. The chill in the air bites at him, amplifying his discomfort. In desperation, he turns to his father, Prince Chun, pleading to return home. Tears begin to flow, and the gravity of the situation weighs heavily on the young prince. Prince Chun, aware of the monumental importance of this occasion, feels a swell of despair. It will soon be over. He tries to assure Puyi, hoping to provide comfort. But to the palace staff who overhear, his words carry a foreboding weight, echoes of uncertainty regarding both the emperor's future and the destiny of the Qing Dynasty itself. The Qing Dynasty, which had risen to power in 1644 after an ethnic minority, the Manchu people, overthrew the Han majority, had reached its pinnacle in 1790, standing as the 4th largest dynasty in history. At the time of Puyi's coronation, China was home to more citizens than any other nation, and with this ascension, the child inherited the responsibility of nearly 1/3 of the world's population. While on paper, the power of the emperor seemed boundless, an emblem of authority enduring for over 2 millennia, the reality told a different story. The Qing Dynasty, once an unparalleled force, had been in a slow decline, its omnipotence increasingly overshadowed by internal strife and challenges. As Puyi sat on the cusp of this great legacy, he found himself at the heart of a complex tapestry of history, one in which his reign could shape not just the empire he inherited, but the very fate of a nation. In a realm fraught with turmoil, the emperor's grip on power had begun to weaken, leading to a moment that seemed utterly out of place. Yet, it was not Puyi's tender years that led to his selection as emperor, but rather the very fact that he was so young. This twist of fate brought them face to face with Suchi, known in whispers as the Dragon Lady. Once a mere teenager, Suchi had been chosen to serve as a concubine to the emperor. However, following his death, she did not merely fade into the shadows. She seized the reins of the empire and ruled with an iron fist for nearly half a century, earning the title of Empress Dajager. To bolster her own power, she appointed young boys as puppet emperors, controlling them from behind the throne. Yet, as these boys grew older and began to thirst for their own authority, friction began to brew. Now, one of her puppet emperors laid frail upon his sickbed, nearing the final chapter of his life. Tucci, aware that the sands of time were slipping away, was desperate to retain her dominion. In the wake of a devastating defeat against Japan, China stood on the brink of financial collapse. To alleviate some of the crushing debt, Suchi permitted foreign powers to seize precious territories and resources. The empire, already weakened, became a shadow of its former self, with its people crushed under oppression, and the Forbidden City swirled with whispers of conspiracy and intrigue. Under mounting pressure, and with her own health slipping, Suchi felt the urgent need for a fresh puppet to replace her dying pawn. As long as Puyi remained in his childhood years, he would be under the regency of his father, Prince Chun, a man loyal to Suchi, yet lacking in skill, and thus unlikely to challenge her supremacy. It was the perfect arrangement. When little Puyi was taken from the comforts of his home, Suchi believed her plans were falling perfectly into place. The following day, as anticipated, her previous puppet emperor succumbed to his fate, poisoned, no doubt, under her careful machinations. Yet, just as she prepared to set her next schemes in motion, fate twisted again. Suchi herself met her end, leaving a mere 2-year-old to occupy the throne. All of this intricate game of power played out unbeknownst to Puyi. The only reality he knew was that he had been whisked away by men dressed in fine clothes, leaving behind the world he once understood. His life was unlike that of any typical toddler. Adorned in a resplendent robe, he was surrounded by attendants performing peculiar rituals just for him. No longer an ordinary child to the world, he was now revered as a living god. Fast forward 3 years, and Puyi had blossomed into a vibrant 5-year-old. A day in his life was nothing short of magical. His eyes fluttered open to reveal he was nestled on a grand kang, a majestic platform bed that served as his nightly sanctuary, with Nurse Wang gently cradling him beside her. For Puyi, rising each day came with certain customs. His attire was of utmost importance. The rules dictated that he could wear nothing that had previously touched another's skin. The silk tunic, padded waistcoat, sable jacket, and luxurious fur cloak he wore the day before had all been cast aside, destined for disposal. As was customary, Puyi would not dress himself. The eunuchs, his faithful servants, tended to this chore with reverence. To serve in the imperial court of the Qing Dynasty, one had to become a eunuch, a path that required unimaginable sacrifice. This meant severing themselves from their male identity, ensuring that the emperor remained the sole fertile man in the palace. By tradition, every child born within its walls was seen as his. The eunuchs, like all male subjects, donned their unique uniform, but only a select few, those bearing the title of eunuchs of the imperial presence, were permitted to meet Puyi's gaze. The rest were bound by custom to lower their eyes or turn away, their heads bowed, their voices high and delicate, from a fate they had endured before reaching maturity. It was known that to enter heaven, one had to be buried whole, so the eunuchs meticulously carried their severed parts in small jars filled with salt water, a reminder of their sacrifices. As the morning sun rose, the whispers of an approaching meal filled the air. A single signal from Puyi was all it took. The eunuchs sprang into action, crafting an elaborate feast to satiate the young emperor's appetite. As with every other day, today called for a visit to the eastern palaces, home to Puyi's 5 mothers, women who had once been wives and concubines of the 2 previous emperors. This journey required a stroll through the vibrant city, flanked by his ever-loyal eunuchs. An intricate procession followed Puyi wherever he ventured. One eunuch would stride ahead, heralding his approach and clearing the path, while 2 chief eunuchs walked closely at his sides, with a small escort trailing just behind. The streets bustled, but all eyes were drawn to the remarkable sight ahead, a young god making his way through a world crafted in his honor. At the heart of the grand procession walked Puyi, the young prince himself, flanked by 2 junior eunuchs attendants. Following closely were the imperial eunuchs, gracefully bearing flowing garments, a majestic parasol, and an elaborate canopy. Next came more eunuchs, their arms laden with boxes of cakes and delightful treats, adding a sweet aroma to the air. Then, the eunuchs of the imperial dispensary appeared, their purpose clear. And finally, at the rear of the procession, came the eunuchs carrying chamber pots and commodes, prepared for any eventuality. As Puyi made his way through the throngs, if the need arose for a moment of privacy, the quick-witted eunuchs would rush forward with a chamber pot, only to dash away moments later, to handle the aftermath. Soon, Puyi arrived at his destination. According to tradition, each mother eagerly inquired about Puyi's health, though their genuine concern was often debatable. Liu, fiercely holding sway over the prince, held a rather unconventional belief that little boys thrived best when kept on the brink of hunger. As the widow of Guangxu, Puyi's previous ill-fated predecessor, and as co-regent alongside Prince Chun, her influence was profound. In a few years, she would cast aside Puyi's cherished nurse, Wang, without even allowing a farewell. Despite his resentment towards all his mothers, Puyi's bitterness toward Liu was particularly deep. As the procession concluded and Puyi made his way back, his mood turned sour. It was then that he made a decisive choice. Two of the eunuchs had displeased him, though the cause was a mystery even to himself. Regardless, he demanded their punishment. They were to expose their backsides. Two other eunuchs stepped forward with slender sticks, and the offending duo was chastised on the spot. A gleeful sparkle danced in Puyi's eyes as he witnessed their humiliation. Upon returning to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, Puyi found himself trapped in a tedium of courtly grumblings. Officials spoke of matters far beyond his understanding, droning on about state affairs and presenting endless documents that awaited the royal seal. With meticulous guidance from his tutors, the young prince applied his seal again and again, the ritual painfully monotonous. Real power rested with Regent Prince Jun, who made the crucial decisions, but it was Puyi's hand that was needed to authorize their execution. At last, after what felt like an eternity of dreary discussions, the prince was granted his freedom. Eager for diversion, he searched for entertainment. Unfortunately, true companionship was scarce, but the eunuchs served not only as his servants, but also as his entertainers. One of his most favored eunuchs stepped forward, ready to captivate him with a puppet show. As the colorful figures danced to life, Puyi's spirits lifted, leaving behind the solemnity of his royal duties for a moment of joyful escape. He adored the intricate world of the puppet show, where strings intertwined with art and skill. One day, a mischievous thought sparked in his mind. He decided to reward the puppet master with a cake, a token of his appreciation. But Puyi, ever the trickster, sought Nurse Wang's help to fill this cake with sharp bits of metal. He was curious to see how the puppet, which he called the eunuch, fared as it devoured such a perilous treat. However, Nurse Wang, with her gentle wisdom, steered him towards a safer alternative of dried beans instead. Not one to be deterred, Puyi requested his air gun. He set his sights on his playful target, the eunuch. Yet, the thrill of shooting soon waned, leaving him restless once more. His sharp gaze soon fell upon a speck of dirt on the floor. With a smirk, he beckoned to one of the eunuchs, commanding, "Consume that for me. When a living god tells you to eat dirt, you better kneel and obey." As dusk settled, wrapping the world in a comforting embrace, the little boy found solace in the arms of Nurse Wang. Despite the warmth and care she provided, he often found himself haunted by memories of the mother he could barely remember, a presence now blurred and distant. He wouldn't see her again until he turned 13, a thought that loomed over him like a heavy cloud. Puyi's life was marked by isolation, unaware that beyond the grand walls of the Forbidden City, turmoil brewed across the nation he was born to rule. It was October 1911, a time of restless spirits and boiling tempers. In Wuchang, soldiers rebelled against their corrupt commanders, igniting a spark that would set the nation ablaze with revolution. The fervor quickly swept across the country, a desperate cry from the people who had endured 4 wars and the encroachment of foreign powers. The Han majority had grown weary of the Manchukuo dynasty's iron grip, their dreams entwined with visions of a unified republic and brighter futures. As the tides turned, even the imperial army shifted allegiance, leaving the dynasty vulnerable and exposed. By February 1912, Prince Chun relinquished his role as regent, and Empress Dowager Longyu followed suit, consenting to Puyi's abdication. The Qing Dynasty crumbled, giving rise to the Republic of China. With newfound freedom of expression, newspapers burst forth across the land, their voices saturating the air with polarized opinions, clamoring to be heard. The schism of views echoed through the streets, a cacophony that would herald the complexities of a changing world, a familiar tale of division and discord that resonates through the ages, reminding us of the precarious balance of trust in the fabric of society. In a time when the truth could easily be obscured by bias in media, a beacon of clarity emerged. Today's sponsor, Ground News, has transformed the landscape of information. Their unique app and website allow users to see how stories are covered worldwide, offering valuable insights into each source's bias, reliability, and whether they're affiliated with state media, corporations, or independent outlets. Take, for instance, the ongoing trade war between the US and China. Ground News presents a side-by-side comparison of the differing narratives. Chinese state media issues stern warnings to nations attempting to undermine their economy, suggesting that such efforts in exchange for tariff exemptions are destined for failure. In stark contrast, American outlets express confident predictions that Trump will emerge victorious in this trade battle. In a world teeming with spin, this level of transparency is not merely beneficial, it's vital. At Fern, we believe that Ground News is an invaluable tool for cutting through the clutter and forming your own opinions. We have arranged a 40% discount on the Vantage plan that we use. Simply visit groundnews.com/fern or scan the QR code to subscribe. The link is also available in the description. Now let us turn our gaze to a different era, where the fate of the last Qing emperor, Puyi, hangs in the balance. The notion of a nation without a monarchy is unthinkable for most traditional Chinese citizens, leading the new leaders to strike a delicate bargain with the former imperial house. Puyi is granted the privilege of living in the Grand Forbidden City, surrounded by his loyal servants and personal wealth, along with a generous annual allowance worth approximately $3.4 million today. Although he has officially relinquished the throne, he remains its symbolic figure, continuing to affix the imperial seal to court documents, though these now pertain to trivial matters such as promotions among staff or the timing for uniform changes. The Forbidden City, once a center of power, has turned into a gilded cage, and Puyi feels the urge to break free. 8 years later, an impeccably dressed British gentleman steps into the Forbidden City, destined to disrupt the tranquility of its hallowed halls. His name is Reginald Johnston, a respected linguist, poet, and calligrapher. He assumes the role of English teacher to the young emperor. However, his lessons extend beyond mere language. Johnston secretly introduces Puyi to Western history and philosophy, sparking a profound transformation in the young ruler who has only been acquainted with Chinese classics. Under Johnston's influence, Puyi discovers a fascination with British culture, leading to bold choices that defy tradition. He cuts off his queue, a serious affront to Qing customs, and begins adopting the attire of an English gentleman. He blends English and Chinese in his speech and adopts the name Henry. Upsetting the dowager consorts, he wears glasses, rides a bicycle through the Forbidden City, and indulges in the cinematic arts. Most intriguingly, Puyi becomes enamored with a peculiar Western invention, the telephone. He begins making calls to acquaintances in Beijing, playfully hanging up before revealing his identity, even orchestrating what might be history's first royal prank call by ordering a meal to a fictitious address. As Puyi's curiosity about the outside world grows, he resolves that once he reaches adulthood, he will venture beyond the confines of his palace to study at Oxford, just like his mentor. On June 3, 1922, he takes a bold step toward realizing this dream, asking Johnston to help him escape the Forbidden City. However, the very man who inspired these aspirations hesitates, for he knows that Puyi's departure would jeopardize his own position and comforts. Alone and increasingly trapped, Puyi finds himself ensnared by those around him, including the dowager consorts reliant on him for their own security. Faced with an impossible choice, Puyi must now select a bride. Guided only by 4 small photographs provided by the dowager consorts, he scrutinizes the faces of potential wives, each image a reminder of his restricted existence. With a heavy heart, the 16-year-old circles one that captivates him, a fleeting glimpse of beauty amid the confines of the Forbidden City. In the heart of a fading empire, there lived a young Manchu girl named WWII. At just 12 years of age, she was a part of an aristocratic lineage, yet she was deemed too impoverished to be a suitable choice for the throne. The dowager consorts, the influential circles of their time, overlooked her potential, favoring instead a wealthier option. This new choice was Wang Rang, a sophisticated 15-year-old from a prominent affluent family, and the consorts of the Dajager were pleased with the decision. The Dajager leader held a collection of tiny portraits, each representing a possible future for his reign. One would be his empress, while others could serve as secondary consorts. Though encouraged to select more, he hesitated, convinced that one union was enough. The chosen images were whisked away, sealing the fates of the girls until the wedding night. Months later, the day arrived when he would meet his empress for the first time. Puyi, now thrust into the role of a husband, was a stranger to the ways of love and intimacy. As he stepped into this new chapter, he found himself paralyzed by the weight of expectation. The pressure of consummating the marriage loomed, but the absence of guidance left him confused and frightened. In a panic, he fled, abandoning the moment entirely. This unfortunate beginning foreshadowed a life devoid of fatherhood. For many years later, his younger brother would reveal that Puyi was found biologically unable to sire children. Speculation arose, suggesting this might have masked a different truth about Puyi's identity. In the wake of Puyi's abdication, turmoil reigned over the land. The first self-proclaimed emperor of the fledgling republic lasted but weeks before capitulating, leaving behind a vacuum of chaos. Warlords clashed across the nation, while insatiable Western powers pressed their influence upon a divided China. Then, in November 1924, a warlord seized control of Beijing and evicted Puyi from the Forbidden City. Though he retained his wealth and a stipend from the state, his reign had come to a definitive close. At 18, Puyi found this unexpected turn agreeable, yearning for a simpler existence. He embraced the facade of freedom, unaware that it would morph into something starkly different than he envisioned. Fast forward 26 years, and we find Puyi in a cramped cell at the infamous Fushun War Criminals Management Center. The dynasty that once flanked him in glory had crumbled, as had the republic birthed from revolution. The Chinese Communist Party, born in the flames of civil war, established re-education camps throughout the nation, where those deemed enemies underwent rigorous indoctrination. Here, prisoner number 981 existed in a state of weakness and bewilderment. Having once lived a life of luxury, where simple tasks like lacing shoes or shutting off a tap were foreign to him, now demanded learning and diligence. No longer the living god of his past, he grappled with the guilt of the crimes he had perpetuated during his rule as a puppet emperor in Manchuria. Once aligned with the Japanese, who enthroned him to legitimize their brutal occupation, Puyi had spent 11 years as their figurehead. Captured by the Soviets and subsequently tried for war crimes, he had disowned his connection to the atrocities, blaming his former allies. Following the communist takeover in 1949, the Soviets sent him back to China, where he now faced the relentless re-education program. The communists saw in him the embodiment of all they opposed: decadent imperialism and avarice. If they could reshape him, it would be a testament to their ideological might. Puyi would endure 9 arduous years of lectures, confronting his guilt while chronicling his misdeeds. Eventually, there emerged a transformed Puyi, fragile but resolute, a resurrected spirit now professing the faith of a die-hard communist. With newfound conviction, or at least the words to convey it, he re-entered the world. His post-prison life began in his sister's home in Beijing, where the echoes of his past haunted him, alongside the ghosts of choices made long ago. In an unexpected twist, he even found himself embodying the very role he once inhabited, serving as a tour guide, weaving tales of a long-lost era to those eager to hear them.